Hello everyone, Gene here with G Squared Tactical, and as promised at the range, I do have the LCP Max, the Sig P365, and the Bodyguard 2.0 all chambered in 380 here on the table, and going to do a side-by-side comparison, if you will. The video will have a little bit of length to it, but I promise it'll be very informative. I'm going to tell you on paper which one is best suited for its intended purpose, which in this case would probably be purse or pocket carry. And I am going to start with the Bodyguard here first. It does come with a 10 round and a 12 round magazine, and with the 10 round in there you are able to get a 3-finger purchase, and certainly able to get a death grip on it with the 12 round mag in there. These mags, as I mentioned out at the range, are very well built in comparison to the Ruger LCP magazines, which I told you I John Wicked one of those during the original range review, and the follower come flying out of it. The magazines for that gun are horrible. And give you an example of what I meant when I was talking about the followers on the, I mean, that's about to come out of there. You see that right there? I mean, I don't know how well that shows up, but that is some kind of flimsy right there. The crazy thing is the mags look very, very similar, but you see that is a lot stiffer, a lot better made. And one time when I John Wicked this on the ground, this whole follower came out. And I know I'm going to ruffle some feathers about some of the things that I say about the LCP in general. Anyway, 10, 12 round mag. Without the magazine in place, the weight comes in at 9.8, and just the 10 round flush fitting magazine here being added bumps that up to 11.45 ounces. That is on my scale, which I know is calibrated. I did so before filming this video, and I think I would not have believed it would have added that much weight just by inserting an empty 10 round magazine, but I think that speaks to the better quality over the LCP magazines. 18-inch grip angle, probably out of the three the best, most aggressive. Slide serrations even coming across into the top here, and as tightly as this thing is sprung, still relatively easy, very usable to use front and rear serrations here. So nice aggression on the slide, huge upgrade. Usually when companies upgrade a gun, they don't really do a whole lot of upgrades, but that's not the case with this one. It is a striker fired versus a hammer fired now, and so much better ergonomics, way better to hold in the hand, way better trigger, way more accurate. The original Bodyguard was an ineffective weapon that I thought in a lot of cases might just get you killed versus you defending your life. I just didn't like it, did not think it was effective at all. Great ergonomics on this gun. Again, it is striker fired, does have the flat face trigger. We'll talk about the trigger here in a second. The length on this is 5.5, the width is a mere 0.88, and the overall height is 4 inches. The MSRP on this is $449. It can be had for $399. That's what I got it for. But I could have, if the guy I go to a lot would have had one in stock, he would have sold it to me for $369. So I expect this thing to probably bottom out somewhere, you know, between $300 and $350. But for now, the MSRP is $449, so we'll stick with that. So the trigger. Now, over the original Bodyguard, if I can put a link to the original Bodyguard video I did, I was kind of making fun of how that when you would pull the trigger back, oh, it's going to break, oh, wait a minute, it just felt like it was going to, and then it would have some more take, oh, it's getting ready to break, nope, not just yet, and then it would finally break. That's not the case with this one. When this trigger hits a wall, it breaks. There's no rolling break. It's very predictable. The reset, although not very tactile as far as pushing back on your finger, you can audibly hear it. Not a great reset, has a decent amount of take up after the reset, so it's not a tremendous trigger in that sense. But overall, this is a staccato trigger in comparison to the original Bodyguard trigger. I like the trigger. I'm okay with the trigger. The trigger is a little bit light for a pocket purse pistol. On my trigger gauge, I don't even look at what the manufacturer says it is or what other people says it is, because I do the review. I'm doing the review, and I don't want to regurgitate what other people are saying, right? So my first trigger pull was 3.5. My second trigger pull was 3.3. My third trigger pull was 3.7 for an average of 3.5. Although that is phenomenal, maybe, especially with a non-thumb safety version, and you can get this in a thumb safety version, that might be a little too light for some people in a pocket carry, but I would say get a good pocket carry holster and you should be fine. Nice deep beaver tail here, again just aiding in that unbelievable grip you're able to get on this very small pistol. But I got zero slide bite from this shooting it out at the range because of that. The front sight orange tritium field, I don't like how wide the U-notch is, just how much space is in there on the rear sight. I would rather that the front sight fill that space to a T, but it does not. That kind of makes it difficult for me. I'm not really a fan. I like the rear blacked out, serrated and all of that. There's just too much space for me anyway in that U-notch, but you do have the front tritium field sight on there, and I believe I covered most of the pertinent information for that one. So we'll set this one over to the side for the sake of time. We won't talk. And I want to address one thing. Out at the range, if you watched the range video, I kept talking about how it wouldn't lock back on the empty mag, and I've came to the conclusion that since that wasn't happening to my wife, that was my fault, because I was holding this like a full-size gun. I mean, really up high and tight, thumbs forward, and I think I was just holding down on this mag release, or I'm sorry, slide lock here, and because it does stick off the frame quite a bit too much in my opinion. It might even be a snag point. It's just kind of it's unnecessary for it to stick off that far, just in my opinion. But anyway, just addressing some of the not locking back at the range issues. Next, we'll come over to the P365, which only comes from the factory with two 10-round magazines, although one of them does have the extended pinky extension here on the bottom of it, and the grip on it. I can get 3 fingers on there with the extended pinky on there, but it definitely ergonomically doesn't feel as good in the hand as the Bodyguard does, but that does not take away from its effectiveness. So without the magazine, this comes in at 13.4, significantly heavier. With the magazine is 15.6. That's a whole over 2 ounces more with a flush fit 10-round magazine. And again, I think that speaks to the quality of the magazine and how well built it is, how well built the magazine is over the LCP magazine. I know I'm gonna keep harping on that because it's straight up garbage. But either way, the texturing on the front, sides, rear, everything is very similar to that of the Bodyguard. The aggression on the slide is not as well done as on the Bodyguard, but you do have more surface area on this slide, so it kind of makes it a non-issue, I guess you could say, because you can pretty easily manipulate this slide as well. It does have a protective ledge underneath the slide lock, and the slide lock seems to be set a little bit more forward on this one, so my thumb doesn't really reach it. So I think that's probably why I was never hitting the slide lock on this one. This one is optic ready. They come out of the factory optic ready. I do like the sight setup on this one better. It is a 3 white dot tritium field Sig Light night sights, I believe. And this front sight does perfectly fill the void in that U on the rear here. And so again, 13.4 without the mag, 15.6 with the mag. The slide not as aggressive, the ergonomics not as good. It is also striker fired, comes in at 1 inch width, which again with the Bodyguard being a 0.88. It is thicker, as I already mentioned. It is a decent amount weightier. The height is 4.2. The overall length is 5.8. So this is the biggest of the three, but still very much so can be put in your purse, in your pocket, and be just as effective, of course, without having a optic on here as, say, the Bodyguard in your pocket. Now, with that said, the way that my wife was shooting this gun out at the range, and when she got done shooting with just the iron, she said, "That's my girl."
That's the girl.
She carries the 365 Rose chambered in 380, and she shoots very well with it. Very accurate. Shot placement is phenomenal, and she could not say that in the case of the Bodyguard, although she shot way better with it than she did the LCP Max. So there's a lot to be said for shot placement. So again, the trigger on this, I mean, I don't know. Again, the trigger's not bad. If you're just going by trigger weight or pull, then you would say that the trigger on the Bodyguard is better. It does not have a center blade safety, which I am happy about. I do not like center blade safeties on triggers. I hate them, in fact. So in that sense, I'm going to like this trigger better. It is a little bit heavier, does have about the same amount of take up, does have a rolling brake. So the brake is not as predictable as it is on the Bodyguard. The reset on this one, about the same as far as distance to the reset, but more tactile as far as pushing on your finger and more tactile as far as audible. So overall, better reset on the trigger. And because it doesn't have the center blade safety, I'm gonna give the prize, the trophy, if you will, to this trigger. And you can get 12 round, maybe even more, but extended magazines for this, should you want the added capacity for your 380 pocket pistol. So again, not going to spend a whole lot of time. I know there's more to each one of these, but I want to talk about them and not make this video too crazy long. And so let's just get right to the LCP Maximum here. So I do like the look of this gun, this 75th edition one. So I don't think just because it's a 75th edition that it's any different than the others, other than having the stainless steel slide and the slightly different looking trigger. But overall, same weight, same all of that stuff. So you just shake that around there. Let's take the mag out and shake this one around. Yeah, that don't make no noise. I don't hear nothing there. Well, let's shake this one around. Good grief. Let's take the magazine out of this one. A little bit of noise on that one. Just to me, it seems like it is not very well built. I mean, all the movement in this trigger side to side, the trigger on this, in my opinion, now again, it is an internal hammer fire. So before I get into all the reasons that I don't like the LCP Max, I will just get into some of the stuff that I did with the other two. So it did only come with one 10-round magazine, although I did purchase I don't know where it is offhand, it's laying around here somewhere, but I did purchase, here it is. I did purchase a 12 rounder here, $35. It's just as much junk as the one that came with it. This is the one that I John Wicked and the follower flew out of it. I was having problems that were not related to me with these locking back on the empty magazine, and it was not related to me. It's because the magazines are cheesy. The weight on this without the mag is 9.3, so it does come in very slightly less weighty than the other two options on the table here. With the magazine inserted, it goes up to 10.8, which again, it goes up less in weight than the other two options. And again, I'm certain that's attributed to just how flimsy these magazines are, and they're not cheap magazines, and that just pisses me off. I mean, it just is what it is. Very similar sight setup here as what's on the Bodyguard, with this huge, just huge width on the U-notch here, serrated in the back. Does have the tritium filled front sight also, but because of it not filling the void completely through this gap, I prefer, again, the sight setup on the 365. The MSRP, I don't know if I mentioned the MSRP on the 365 is $4.99, but there are places you can get it for $3.99. Usually comes in around $4.50, something like that. So about $50 to $75 more than the S&W Bodyguard. The MSRP on this, now this particular one, if you get the non-75th anniversary edition, the MSRP is somewhere around $4.79. So not the cheapest of the three, but somewhere in the middle, I guess you could say. You can usually find them for somewhere around $400. The ergos, yeah, nah, man, they're just pretty much non-existent. I just don't like the way it feels. I don't like this huge gawky trigger guard. There's no undercut here like on the Bodyguard or the 365, and my middle finger here just gets eat up underneath this trigger guard. The ergos on this are horrible. Let's see, the length on this is 5.17, the width is 0.75, and the height is 4.12. So certainly the smallest out of the three on the table. So, you know, some people say, well, that's what I'm looking for. It's a pocket pistol. I want the smallest. But for me, I want the most effective. So I can put this in my pocket, get it out as effective as I can this, and as I can the 365. 100% I can. I can get all three of these out of my pocket in a timely manner with practice. All three of them I can get out just as easily and be just as effective at getting it on target. However, shot placement, in my opinion, is most important. So, but again, on paper, front night sight, all three. This weighs less, overall is smaller, and the trigger on this is bad. It is really, really bad, but again, it is a internal hammer fired pistol, so the trigger's not going to be as good, but the trigger just feels flimsy. Like I can't really put my finger, well, I do have my finger on it, but it's horrible. The trigger is horrible. So it hits a wall, and it just, like, it gets hard. Like it hits a wall, and it's like it gets heavy, you know. And then you have a rolling, very much so rolling brake. And then the reset is pretty much all the way out. Well, not really. So let's do the reset. Yeah, it's not all the way out. Maybe a third of the way out, but you can't really feel it at all. I don't feel it at all on my finger. Very low audible reset. Reset is absolutely horrible. I hate the freaking trigger. The first pull on this was 5.11. Second pull was 5.14. Third pull was 5.10 for an average of 5.12. So the heaviest trigger by a smidge out of the three. Now some people might say, well, it's a pocket pistol, you want a heavy trigger. I want an effective gun. That's what I want. I want something that I can get on target. So on paper, if these are pocket pistols on paper, let's get this out of here because it didn't come with it. But on paper, if you're using these for pocket pistols, then the LCP Max on paper would win. It's less weighty than the three. Right, it has it's the length, the width, the height, all of that is smaller than the three. Does have very similar sights set up. You know, it works. You know, it was functional. It was reliable. Let's put it that way. And so, as for a pocket pistol on paper, you would say this one works. But for me, and not to mention, I've carried several of these LCPs, and I promise you this one's no different. Someone said, oh, well, that's the stainless steel slide there, you know, the polished slide, if you will. It won't rust. That's straight up garbage. Baloney, if you will, as my dad used to say when I was a kid. It absolutely will rust. And every LCP I have ever owned rusted in my pocket. Every single one of them. It's a rust bucket. On a quiet night, you can hear an LCP rust. I'm just saying, for me, my opinion, this is not even in the running. I would not carry this if neither one of these were available. I would continue to carry my P938 from Sig. So we're going to take that one and put it completely off to the side over there. And I'm going to get my P938 now that I'm speaking about it, because we'll look at it here in just a second. Now, let's bring these two down here. So most of the time they say that women would be the one carrying these guns. Women buy them the most, right? And my wife, between these two, man, I was just impressed, and told her as much repetitively when we got home and so forth, just how impressed I was with how she shot with this P365 over the Bodyguard. However, she shot significantly better. She said, and I didn't, she wasn't regurgitating what I said. She said she hated the Ruger, hated it. I told her I was selling it. Actually, it's already been sold, just waiting to get it to the guy. She said, good riddance, get rid of that thing. So she prefers the 365 for one reason, and one reason only, is because she shoots better with it. So shot placement, everybody's so focused on concealability, how deeply it is concealed and all this other stuff, but shot placement, in my opinion, matters more. This is the most accurate. It handles the recoil the best, but it is the heaviest, so you would expect it to. The Bodyguard feels better in the hand. With practice, I believe it could be potentially just as accurate. So it's very difficult for me to choose, but because of shot placement, I would have to go with the 365 overall.
No, not that gun! Use the other gun! The other gun, stupid!
But I do like this gun a lot. I do like it a lot. I like the trigger. I like the feel in the hand. Typically when I buy guns like this, they are for sale ASAP. I'm keeping this one for the time being. I do like it. I'm going to revisit it. We put 300 rounds through it. Had a few failure to go back in the battery in the first couple mags. Other than that, it was great. But the Sig P938, still in the DeSantis holster, is the big winner for me, because I am lights out with this. It's a 9mm, and shot placement means more than how well you can conceal a gun. Tell me what your thoughts are. Leave your hate mail in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Go over, check out gsquaredtactical.com. Pick up some gear, hats, shirts, coasters, all those types of things. Please consider going over and supporting me with monthly subscription on Patreon, as I'm over there on that platform as well. Rumble also. And thanks so much for watching, guys. Be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe. And may God bless.